9:01. Let's start with a Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Chisel. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And then, Ms. Black, let's do a roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Nat Caraselli. Mr. John Farahi. Mr. Vic Wowo. Mr. Ed Lawson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman Lucy will be out today. Mr. Rick Murdoch. Here. Mayor Hillary Sheedy will be coming from another meeting. Mr. Bill Wood. Here. And Mr. John Vineyard. Here. Thank you.
Okay. And let's move on to comments from the public. We have a few. Let's start with Andy Chapman.
Good morning. Thank you. Andy Chapman, the President and CEO of the Incline Villas Crystal Bay Visitor Bureau. I haven't been down here for the last couple of meetings, but I did want to come down and commend this board and the efforts of the RSCVA staff on the Interbike. That is a huge piece of business that you guys are going to be bringing forward, that the region is going to benefit greatly for, we hope, many years. And certainly the work that Shelley Fine has done, her staff, Michael, and Phil as well. So I just wanted to thank you for that on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Kim Tracy.
Good morning, I'm Kim Tracy, and I'm here on behalf of the Wild Creek Golf Course group. Again, I have nothing prepared, so please bear with me. I just wanted to make a couple of observations. First of all, I'd like everybody here to know that the Wild Creek group is not anti-schools. We're not anti-kids. We all want the schools to be built. We just oppose the location of the school being built on the Wild Creek Golf Course. We've asked several times the school board what their plan B and plan C is, and while they tell us first they didn't have one and now they have one, but they're not sharing it with us. So what I'd like to propose that they look at, and I know you guys don't have control over this, but I'd like you to help encourage them go in a more responsible direction for taxpayers. I'd like to see them do some feasibility studies over at Hug High potentially. I understand that school is in total disrepair, probably should be raised. However, I think that revitalizing that poor socioeconomic area in the city of Reno would make a heck of a lot more sense than trying to build in an area where everybody has to be bussed in. They have the potential maybe to build a taller parking structure there, build already existing, they already own the land. They could use the baseball field, which I understand is in disrepair, to start the building, use portable buildings for a couple of years. It wouldn't be convenient, but none of these places are going to be convenient and probably done in the time that they expect. I'd also like to note that the potential, if you give them the land or sell them the land or however you're going to do this of the golf course, the potential is that when the feasibility studies are all done, the school won't be built there. And in which case, we'll lose the school being built there, and we'll also lose the golf course. The golf course, while many of you may not see that as a big draw to visitors to the city, I believe it could be. I think the city is going to grow exponentially over the next 15 years up to as many people, or as many as 250,000 in our area. A lot of those people will be golfers. The golf population in Reno is between 11 and 12% as compared to the national average of about 10%. The golf course, and this is something that many of you might think about, golf is one sport that isn't played at night. Everything else is played at night. So those golfers, when they come to town, need something to do at night. So that could help bring more people to the casinos, which would help improve our business here in Reno. I think the main concern that all of you should share with us is that we would like to see the school board use our tax dollars wisely. And from everything that we've seen so far, using the golf course is probably not the wisest expenditure of that money. There's going to be a lot of issues that they have to deal with. It's a flood mitigation site. It's in the flight path. From what I understand, the soil tests to date have not been favorable. The traffic is going to be a huge issue. So those are just things I'd like you to consider.
Thank you. Jeff Church, followed by John Capurro.
Good morning, folks. Jeff Church. I run a website, renotaxrevolt.com. It's always my pleasure to speak to this wonderful group. Don't tell the others, but you are my favorite. I do want to speak to you today about AB 375, the flood tax, as it relates to room tax, which we don't want. We don't want Reno and all the hotels paying for the alleged flood tax. There's many, many legal issues with AB 375. They're in your handout today for you. We're searching for an attorney within a reasonable price to address these, but they have to be addressed. They're going to be addressed. Feel free to get a hold of me on that if you know any good attorneys, because we've spoken to some and we're just searching for the right one. I'm also want to share my concerns about the direction the Chamber of Commerce has taken in supporting AB 375. I'll deal with that if I have time. And as far as the room tax goes, I'm begging you not to throw us under the bus. In other words, the little people, just because we don't have a room tax doesn't mean we're going to pass it off on somebody else. AB 375 is just a bad bill. It's an illegal bill, and it needs to go away, not to argue about who's going to pay what tax. But I do want to bring up one important point on that, and that there's options if we think outside the box. There's tons of federal land available for a land swap for those folks that were dumb enough to build in a floodplain. You know, granted, part of me says, hey, let them pay their own tax. But on the other hand, there's other options. We have lots of federal land, north, south, east, west, that they can use to build their warehouses. Then we can turn that whole area in the floodplain into parks and rec, where if it does flood, it's not the end of the world. We don't need to see, and this is very important, I wanted to bring this up. How much do they want? Over $400 million in taxes. $400 million is the proposal. I was at the meeting. That's outrageous. We can buy those people out a lot cheaper than that. It's just $400 million for that. It's mind-boggling. And we pay sales tax already. Each of us pays sales tax for flood control, and it worked. It worked in the last flood. So again, there's legal issues. I have concerns that why does the Chamber of Commerce support this? They supported RTC 5. We have the highest gas tax in the state and the nation. We have the highest sales tax under WC 1. Now they want a flood tax. The Chamber of Commerce is not representing businesses. They're representing government. They've never met a tax they didn't like. So thank you for your time. Please read the handout I gave you. Feel free to get a hold of me. Let's work together to defeat this AB 375 and not just argue over who's going to pay it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Church. John Capurro, followed by Darlene Hesse.
Good morning. My name is John Capurro. I'm here to ask the board to give consideration to maintaining the Wild Creek Golf Course. My west property boundary is the east property boundary of Wild Creek Golf Course at the 5th tee. My great-grandfather started purchasing property in the vicinity of Wild Creek Golf Course in 1876 and eventually had all the land where the golf course is now. My mother, father, and my uncle sold the property to Joe and Sally Conforti, who in turn sold it to Washoe County to be built into the Washoe County Golf Course. I realize that there is a need for another high school in that part of the valley, but not at that location, not at Sullivan and McCarran. There are so many problems associated with it. My family farmed that. We had dairy farms. We built fences. We dug post holes. I can tell you about the clay soil. I can tell you about the flooding that comes through there repeatedly. It's not the site to go to. It's not there. There's other places to go. I would like to suggest that you consider a long-term lease to a professional golf administrator to run that piece of property. Give them a 10-year lease with 2 5-year extensions. Let them catch up with the deferred maintenance at the golf course. If you go up there, you know the things that have not been done. And you got to look long-term in a golf course. You can't look up short. So I just ask that you do all those considerations, look at it. There's lots of problems, traffic, soils, pollution, all those. You'll hear about those, but that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Darlene Hesse, followed by John Hesse.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Darlene Hesse. I've lived Wild Creek area for 40 years, and it's really a very nice area. I'm not a golfer, but I'm a nature lover, and there's so many beautiful animals, and a pleasurable thing is to hear the golfers come by having a good time. And I think that you people should really understand that we are not against the schools. Education is very important to our family, to everyone on our committee, and we want to see good schools. But you know, when you think about mega bucks for a school, I feel like there's a lady in Las Vegas, I still don't know her name, but she's must be on the school board. She said that we got to get back to the build a school, but build it for education. Don't spend all this money on all these fancy buildings. And remember that the kids, they need the school teachers, excellent school teachers. And to spend this money unwisely is not a very good thing to do. I hear all sorts of numbers, like 300 million after they have to take the soil that has been contaminated for all these years. And then I hear about the ore ditch, to relocate the ore ditch. That's going to be millions more. I mean, my gosh, there's got to be other pieces of property. And this is was a PGA built golf course. Arnold Palmer played there, and I just believe it can be brought back to a very nice, wonderful place. And it's a beautiful area, and it's a shame to just take such a nice property and all the taxpayers' money. $30 million supposedly will be destroyed to build a school that no one even has any idea. The soils aren't correct. The rock structure is so hard that they couldn't even move 3 of the holes up in the where they want to have the proposed area for the seniors, and the seniors won't be able to go there because it will be too hard for them to play golf, and then pretty soon that will be sold to a contractor or whatever. But this is a beautiful area. It's a lovely area to keep for all people, for animals, for people, for all to enjoy. It's so wonderful to just go by and see that green area. It just is a wonderful thing. I've enjoyed it so much every day of my life and my husband's life. We always enjoy just looking at the mountains and the scenery around there, the animals. I mean, the golfers are all having a lot of fun. This would be a real terrible loss for the community. And just remember that we are not against the schools, but I want to see a wise decision made for these kids. I don't want to see this money wasted away on a property that no one has any idea of how expensive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hesse. Mr. John Hesse, followed by Ben Sternberg. Did I say that right?
Good morning. Pretty lucky guy, huh? Wow, I don't know what she puts up with me, but anyway. Good morning, and I'm speaking in opposition to taking the golf course away. The first lady that got up, I think, read my speech, and now I don't know what to say. You know, RSCVA board, I can see why it sounded like a real good deal. You want to get out of the golf business, and that's fine. And if I had some big businesses downtown or out where Mr. Caroselli has, Mr. Farai has his business, I would want to have the folks down there in my business also. But if you take this golf course away, and we're almost got it paid for now, and if we take it away, and golfing is coming back a little bit, and with all the people that are supposedly to be moving into this area, we're going to need a golf course, and it's a good golf course. And you can look across the beautiful Truckee Meadows from that golf course to see the Reno Sparks area. I think it'd just be a real shame to get rid of. I think also, to elaborate a little bit more on Hug High School, you know, it's not on a real big footprint right now, but you could build up and maybe disrupt the school for a little while with some temporary buildings, and maybe some of the sports venues would have to be played at other places. But if you could put that high school in an area that a lot of blue-collar workers and people are having a hard time, it could be the crown jewel of the high schools in the area. And I think that the kids would be very proud to go to a school like that. They're already in that area now. You wouldn't have to bus them in. You wouldn't have to worry about the FAA control. You wouldn't have to worry about the flood control. You wouldn't have to worry about the ditch. There are just so many other things to do that I think it would probably be a real good idea to take a good look at redoing Hug High School and seeing if maybe that wouldn't be a better way to go. But again, the education is very important. They're our future. Our kids are our future generation that are going to run this country, and they do need good schools, and I'm not at all opposed to that. I'm just opposed to the location of a high school at Wild Creek. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hesse. Next is, I'm saying your first name wrong, it's Bent Sternberg? Thank you. Followed by Wesley Griffin.
Good morning. My name is Bengt Sternberg. I've been a voter and a resident of Washoe County for over 36 years. And I want to speak in favor of keeping the Wild Creek Golf Course as a golf course. I think that it's an unusual golf course in the fact that it does have a par 3 9-hole course, which is attractive to a lot of people that can't spend all day long playing golf. So they can take just an hour to play that short course, which is very attractive to a lot of us golfers. The property is one of the few public golf courses left in the Reno Sparks area. And I think that's also an important aspect, that there are several country clubs around, but for somebody who plays public golf courses, that is an important aspect. When I take a look at the RSCVA and their stated purpose, it says that they're supposed to attract overnight visitors by featuring local amenities and activities, and amongst other things, enhance quality of life. I think that it's very important to have green spaces and golf courses for people to enjoy outdoor activities. The other thing that I looked at was the strategic plan for the RSCVA, the 5-year strategic plan. And in the SWOT analysis, amongst other strengths that are listed there, it lists golf as one of the strengths, natural beauty, outdoor sports, and affordability. All of those things apply to the Wild Creek Golf Course as it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wesley Griffin, followed by Liz Griffin.
Good morning. I'm Wesley Griffin. I'm here to speak in favor of saving Wild Creek. Have you ever been looking for something, can't find it? You search high and low, look everywhere, just can't find it. So finally you call somebody in. In my case, it's usually my wife. She comes over and looks on my desk and says, well, right there it is. And I think, wow, well, right there it is. You know, why couldn't I see that? And I think that quite often we can't see things, maybe it's solutions to problems or whatever, because it's in plain sight. It's hidden in plain sight. And I would suggest to you that the problem or the dilemma that you face here with Wild Creek is hidden in plain sight. We have 2 public golf courses here that are operating very well. They're public golf courses that are managed privately. There's a real interesting book I would suggest that you have a look at if you ever have the chance to do a little extra reading. It's a book called Switch, How to Change When Change is Hard. It's written by a couple of Ivy League professors, Dan and Chip Heath, I think their name is. And in there they tell a story about a big problem that's a international problem about starving children. And there's children that are starving to death over in Vietnam, and they're trying to figure out how to solve this problem. And of course, we're talking about spending billions of dollars and millions of man hours. And finally, somebody notices that not all the children there are starving. There's some children that are doing very well. So they go over to find out, well, how are these children surviving so well? Well, they find out that their mothers have been catching shrimp in these rice paddies and adding that to their diet. Problem solved. We've got 2 solutions, 2 examples of solutions to this problem. That doesn't solve necessarily the problems of the school. We're all in favor of good schools for our children. But when we look at the multitude of problems that is going to be faced with putting a school in Wild Creek Golf Course, we were told recently by a local council member here in Reno that he wouldn't be surprised to see this school triple in cost, from $110 to $330 million. Is that how our tax dollars need to be spent? We just heard a gentleman talk about the floodplain out in Lemon Valley, people building out there. What if the school district was proposing to build a school out there, out in the floodplain out there? What would we be saying? Not the wisest thing to do to build a school in a floodplain. Wild Creek is a floodplain, and it's serving that problem very well. Or what if the school wanted to build...
All right, Mr. Griffin, let's wrap it up.
Okay. If they were trying to build a school down next to the river, what would we say? Not the wisest thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Liz Griffin, followed by Darla Lee.
Well, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say because everybody kind of said it. The points are well made, I believe, and I'm here to support the idea of the Wild Creek Golf Course going into private management, and I do believe that that advantages the community, but I also believe that that gives an advantage to the school district budget. We've read time and time again of the deficits, and from what we understand and what we've learned so far about this proposed project, things would get a lot worse. There are other options. We are aware of that. While that's not the RSCVA's problem, we'd like to have the RSCVA understand that we believe turn the golf course over to the school district is not to their advantage and certainly not to the community's advantage. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kathleen Shoup? Pardon me? Darla? Yes, sorry. Sorry, Darla.
Wasn't paying attention. Good morning. I'm going to read a short statement that I've actually submitted to the Reno Gazette for publication, but since sometimes they don't publish the articles sent in, depending, I thought I would read it to you folks for your consideration in case it's not in the paper. The voters who approved WC1 last November should expect financial responsibility from the Washoe County School Board in spending those funds. The proposed building of a new high school on the current Wild Creek Golf Course is not fiscally responsible. The known negatives of this location on a floodplain, already congested traffic area on the flight path, et cetera, would need to be overcome at a tremendous increase of cost before building could even start. No one is saying that a new high school is not needed, but surely there are other more suitable locations. Hug High can and should be revitalized and perhaps even expanded to include the proposed vocational school, which would greatly benefit all the surrounding area. Tax dollars should be wisely spent, and destroying an asset like Wild Creek Golf Course is not wise. Of course, that's my opinion, but in reading over the mission statement of the RSCVA, I do not see any correlation with giving this property to a high school. Although that is a public benefit, having a good high school, to have it in this location, I do not think meets the mission of the RSCVA, at least as I'm reading it. And I know you have pictures of skiing and golfing, et cetera, to promote those attractions, to bring people to this area. But I don't see any pictures of kids going to school. So it seems to me like that it's a very simple decision, and especially in consideration of spending our tax dollars wisely, that the RSCVA has an obligation to make a decision toward their mission statement, and to, in essence, help the school board to find another location that would be much more suitable and attractive to the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen Shep, followed by George Lee.
I'm Kathleen Shop, and I live alongside the Wild Creek Golf Course. First of all, I am a proponent of education. I put myself through college. That's how much it means to me. I worked myself to death going to school because I wanted an education. I have a few alternative locations for you guys to keep in mind. How about the Livestock Events Center? RSCVA wants to do something with that as well. So put a high school there maybe. Move it up into the hills where they have a lot more space for the animals to stay in while the people are visiting our area. I've heard arguments about them needing more space for all the big horse trailers and such. So give them some space. We have a lot of land. We're not like the inner cities. We have space. Another place, well, how about Rancho San Rafael? The north side of North McCarran Boulevard is being used as a Frisbee park, and they have ball fields there and all. So consider that. I also think that up there at the Sun Valley Regional Park, there are 343 acres that are usable up there. So there's another thing to look at. You're not stuck with just one location, and we don't want you to put it in our location because it is a green space and it is a valuable asset to our community, and please don't destroy it. There's lots of places we can put a high school. Thank you.
Thank you. George Lee. George is it for now, but I have other ones that have listed here that you want to speak on the item itself. Is that the case? Douglas, Charlotte, Clem, and yeah. You two, do you want to speak now or do you want to speak on E1? Okay. George.
Ready?
Go right ahead. Sorry.
Good morning. Thank you for all that you do. And hey, I thought of something. I wondered how many rooms did the Barracuda sell when the Barracuda was in town a week ago or a couple of weeks ago? People come in and stay at the hotels. Did they actually make it worth your while? Because the hotels are the ones who are benefiting. We all benefit from the responsibility you guys have for this basically Parks and Recreation Board. I'm surprised because Jennifer's advertisements that she put up, the ones, they were great. They were really well done. But I don't remember seeing anybody out at the Barracuda on them. I didn't see, now maybe they were designed to attract 20-year-olds, you know, to the area. But 20-year-olds come to the area, they sleep in their cars, and they go mountain bike and ski and stuff. They don't stay at hotels. What we need is people to come into town who have some financial resources, okay? You know, there's a difference between fiduciary responsibility and financial responsibility. And unfortunately, you have a fiduciary responsibility because you oversee millions and millions of dollars worth of assets. And that to destroy a $20 to $30 million asset in order to get rid of it off your books is, instead of, it was literally managed into the purpose of getting rid of it. You know, it was underfunded. The funds for keeping the golf course up were subverted to other entities, which is, you know, that's financial. That's, I mean, that's your ability to do that. Your bookkeepers can do that. You know, you make financial choices, and that's well within your purview. But to take and sacrifice this $20 to $30 million asset so that you can get it off your books is not your fiduciary responsibility. It is not your financial responsibility either. Because this, Mr. Etchard is here. He's looking to see what's going on. We talked to him earlier about this project, about the golf course and the use of the school. And he said it was a done deal. And that sure sounds like rush to judgment to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte Clem, followed by Douglas Clem.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Clem. We live on Whittakin and really appreciate the beauty of the golf course. We know how much work has gone in for the past 30 years just to bring it up to where it is. It would be a shame to lose that, not only for the golfers, but for the rest of the community that appreciates the beauty of the open space. There's not many locations in the area that have an open space that everyone can enjoy the same way. I was really taken by Chris DeWitt, who started the First Tee program for young golfers. She came and talked to our group. She mentioned that a few years ago there were only 60 young golfers in the program. She is now over 2,000. The project is growing. There's a waiting list. They don't have room for the young kids to learn to play golf because of the lack of public space. These are the kids that are going to grow up in the area that will be playing. The program not only teaches golf, but also values of life. The golf is one of the few sports that you can play as a youth that will carry on into adulthood. A family can enjoy together. By taking away the Wild Creek Golf Course, whether it's privately run or continue to be run and more funds put in, will devastate that program. I want you to consider that. When you remember the sign downtown that says believe, I think it means believe in the entire community, in the future of not only the city, but our youth and what we're planning to do. The 2,000 kids that are already signed up for the program, that equals close to what would be the student population of Wild Creek Golf, so if it's turned into a school. So we're also benefiting the youth by teaching them in other ways, not just a building that can be located in another location. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Clem, followed by, is it Rain Niehaus? Am I saying your name correct? Is it Rain? Renee. Not seen it spelled that way before. Go ahead, Mr. Clem.
Hello, I'm Douglas Clem. I'm opposed to the Wild Creek Golf Course being turned into a school. The amount of money that it would take to prep the lot and to create a school in that area is, I'm sure they could probably build another elementary school with the amount of money that they're going to pour into just the preparation and all of the issues on congestion. And we live at the very end of Whittican, and we've seen the Whittican Road turn into the Nevada Day Parade almost because of all the construction, and before the construction, just the amount of people and congestion in that area. I recently went out to Golden Valley to visit a friend, and I got stuck in that Golden Valley Avenue, and there was 2 police officers, school police officers, they were traffic cops trying to get all of the buses out of the area and out of the school district or out of the school lot. And I mean, it was 10 minutes worth of just sitting and waiting, and all the kids roaming to school back and forth. They parked their cars across the street. I mean, the congestion is just horrible. And there isn't that much out there in Golden Valley as far as compared to where we're at on Sullivan and McCarran. The liability that you're going to create with traffic, we've killed enough pedestrians in the last 10 years that we don't really need a lot of kids roaming McCarran and Sullivan and El Rancho and Whittican walking up and down with all the, if you're putting 2,400 kids in there, of course most of them are going to be bused, but there's going to be a lot of people walking in that area. And as far as the First Tee program, we had a presentation by the lady that told us that there were over 2,000 kids in this program. And if anybody played in sports or band or anything in high school, when you got out of school, you never use those skills after high school. But if you learn the values in life on golf and as a youth for a golfer, you can carry those out throughout life. And I mean, people, not only old guys like me, but the youth of the world have a sport that they can play forever. So I think golf for our community is really important, especially with the amount of golf courses that we've already lost. So I would like to see Wild Creek stay as Wild Creek and identify another area. They bought, what, for $100 an acre in Sun Valley, they bought land from the BLM so they can build a middle school. I mean, there's other options out there if people really looked. So I'd like to say let's keep Wild Creek Golf Course.
Thank you. Renee Niehaus? If there's anyone else wishing to speak at this time, please fill out a card and give it to Ms. Black so we can get you on.
My name is Renee Niehaus, and I didn't hear all of the responses I know I'm short. My name is Renee Niehaus, and I didn't hear all the responses this morning, but from what I have heard, I am in support of everything that has been said. I don't want to go ahead and say everything again. But one thing I did want to bring up is, you know, as a taxpayer, one of my concerns, I also live in Sparks, is that moving HUG is a hub of the community where everybody lives, and everybody lives around HUG. And to remove that with the young people around, and they also help financially all the vendors that are around them, to move that out, my concern is what's going to happen with that area. Right now between Sullivan and Audi. It's an area where there hasn't been a lot of new growth in there, and so my concern is once you move Hug out and move it into Wild Creek, which I also looked at the zoning. Sparks High is zoned right up into Wild Creek property. So you're going to have Sparks High zoning on one side, and all the Hug High School is going to be right next door to the Sparks High zoning. And so my concern is just to think about revitalizing that area and putting some new growth and new finances into that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time in their public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Need approval of the agenda. And just to keep in mind that the Mayor Sheeby has asked that we hold on the update of Wild Creek until she arrives. And I'm going to give her until 10 o'clock or shortly after, and then we'll take that subject. So, can I get approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Moved by Mr. Wowo, seconded by Mr. Carasili. Is that your name? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. I need approval of the minutes for the July 27th Board of Directors meeting and the July 28th Special Board of Directors meeting. It's the event center, not the golf course. Okay, we'll keep the golf course moving. Sorry, did I get a motion to approve both of those? Thank you. Motion by Mr. Carasili, seconded by Mr. Vineyard. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Well, guess what, Pete? You get to go. You don't have to delay. So let's move on to our update on Wild Creek and start off with Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This morning I've been asked to just sort of give a brief summary of the history and the facts surrounding Wild Creek and the Wild Creek asset, so that not only our board but everybody here is on the same page and working from the same set of facts. So let's start with the dirt. Wild Creek consists of 212 acres. It was purchased in 1974 by the RSCVA. RSCVA at the time took title as the County of Washoe, State of Nevada, acting through its Reno Sparks Convention Authority. RSCVA paid approximately $979,000 for the Wild Creek and associated water rights. Those were RSCVA funds. Since purchase, the improvements to construct the golf course, the maintenance of the golf course, ongoing operations of the golf course, that's always been paid by RSCVA funds. Be clear, there are no deed restrictions on the Wild Creek, the 212-acre parcel that the RSCVA owns. As far as the financing out at Wild Creek, as everybody's aware, there has been no significant capital expenditures out in Wild Creek in the past few years. There's been no deferred maintenance undertaken. All the assets out there are fully depreciated, and it operates right now at a loss of approximately $270,000 a year, not including the ongoing capital needs and expenses. As far as the water is concerned, Wild Creek is served by approximately 500 acre-feet of effluent water that the RSCVA acquires from the city of Sparks. That effluent service is supported by 449 acre-feet of Truckee River water rights that are currently held by the city of Sparks with a reversionary interest in those water rights, meaning when the effluent agreement expires or terminates, those water rights go back to RSCVA and the county. In addition to the 449 acre-feet of Truckee River water rights, there are approximately 506 acre-feet of Wells Creek water rights. The Wells Creek water rights are really aesthetic value only. It's not a water right that you can divert the use or take to a different location. It's really for in-stream flow on the course.
As far as the effluent agreement with the city of Sparks, it's a $300,000 a year fee that the RSCVA pays for the effluent service. And that agreement runs through 2022. So, there's an approximate balance there of about 1.2 to 1.5 million. It's important to note, per NRS 244A 624, any sale or lease of Wild Creek by the RSCVA is subject to county approval. As far as sort of the history of Wild Creek and how this board has dealt with Wild Creek and possible disposition, those that are on the board will recall in February 2016, the board visited the potential of developing Wild Creek or selling Wild Creek to a developer. We had a meeting to discuss that. At that meeting, the board decided that it wasn't opposed to leaving Wild Creek a golf course, but made clear that the RSCVA no longer desired to own or operate the course. Shortly thereafter, maybe even a little bit before, there were informal discussions with some local governments regarding local governments taking over Wild Creek. And those discussions were at the staff level, and those never really came to fruition. There wasn't really the interest. As far as, Mr. Etchert's going to talk a little bit about the school district and their plans and where they're at in the process. You'll note in your materials, we've got all the supporting materials, and we also have a timeline that's been assembled by staff, Washoe County, and the school district, trying to sort of lay out a timeline for the major milestones for this project. So with that, I will turn it back to Mr. Vice Chair if anybody has any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the board for Mr. Kennedy at this time? All right. Mr. Etchart, you're on.
Well, thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Pete Etchart. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Washoe County School District, and I've been asked to come today to kind of give you a brief update of where we are with the proposed high school at Wild Creek project. And I want to tell you first and foremost, we are, as a staff, extremely excited about this project, and we continue to be very excited about this project. And I only wish I could have the staff with me today, the parents, and most importantly, the students, to really tell you adequately how excited we are about this project. The last time we spoke was on May 25th when you approved the letter of intent for this project. We then took a professional services agreement to our Board of Trustees on June 6th to hire Wood Rogers and Traffic Works to begin the detailed engineering analysis of this site, what we call our due diligence on the property. We hope to have that report, that analysis, completed by November. To kind of let you know where we are in that process right now, the surveying work is completed, the geotechnical field work is completed, the environmental field work, the hydrologic analysis, the utility investigation, and the traffic study are all well underway. We have also authorized a detailed review of the water rights associated with the property, the effluent agreement, and we've ordered a preliminary appraisal of the property. We are also continuing our work with the Airport Authority staff, and upon their request, I provided their Board of Trustees an update 2 weeks ago. Again, we hope to have this work finalized by November. In addition to the due diligence on the property and the site, we are continuing with the preliminary design of the prototype high school. A team of design professionals, industry experts, community members, school administrators, teachers, and students have been working hard to develop the specifications for our 21st century high school. And I really can't thank that team enough for the work they put in. They've really a lot of excellent work being developed. We've had a group of 20 students that have been meeting to actually help us with the design of this school. For a school they'll never attend, but they realize the importance for future students that are coming to this Washoe County School District. So to stay on our aggressive timeline we have for this project, we are also going forward with the selection of our contractor, or the CMARC, Construction Manager at Risk, for this project. The selection panel, comprised of district and community representatives, has shortlisted 4 fantastic firms that will be interviewed. Clark & Sullivan Construction, Core Construction, Q&D Construction, and United Construction have all been shortlisted. To kind of summarize where we are right now, we are very hopeful that these engineering studies that are being completed will confirm that this site is suitable for the construction of a high school. But I can tell you this much right now. From a location standpoint, this location is perfect for us. And it's really it's perfect for the students and families we serve. As we have heard from the Sun Valley community for many years, the ability to keep all of the Sun Valley community students together going to one high school is just a huge benefit and fantastic for that community. But we also believe that this new high school will also go a long way for changing the educational culture of this entire area. I won't take the time with you today to give you all the statistics, but studies have clearly shown the impact of new schools, how students view their safety at school, their pride in their school, and even in student achievement. Teacher retention rates have also been shown to be positively impacted when a school's physical space is improved. Lastly, and I really want to make sure that we understand that when we talk about the high school at Wild Creek project, we're also talking about the renovation and repurposing of Hug High School. And those two projects really do join together. That's going to give us a huge opportunity with the Washoe County School District. And really, I don't think the impacts can be overstated. It will simply provide students in the Washoe County School District with more educational outcomes, more options to be successful. They also, the benefits to the community as we work toward workforce development, as we prepare students for these positions and these incredible companies that are coming to Northern Nevada, that's what we're preparing these students for, and that's what the Career and Technical Academy at Hug High School will be a huge part of. So on behalf of the Washoe County School District, I just want to really thank you for your consideration of this important project to us, and I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from the board? Mr. Frahi?
May I ask you a question? I sit here as a board member, one board member. I'm puzzled. What does RSCVA has to do with this school? We are not going to change the vote on the zoning. We are not going to be voting on whether the school should be there or not. So I'm a little puzzled. It is the city of Sparks, is Washoe County, and the school district has to make that decision. This board, again, I want everybody to understand, those of you who are here who are homeowners. If I was a homeowner around that golf course, I would be sitting where you are sitting. I want to tell you that first. But this is not the fight that RSCVA is in. All we have talked about, that with 45 golf courses in this area, that the RSCVA does not need to be in that business any longer. Now, there was one of the speakers said, maybe you should have a private professional group run that golf course. Fine. If it doesn't work out between City of Sparks, Washoe County, and the school district, that's probably what's going to end up happening. Again, I'm speaking for myself as one board member. So I'm sometimes confused why RSCVA is involved in this fight. All we want to do is to get this golf course, because it's losing this organization, as you heard, $270,000, and if we keep it, we have to put in a lot of capital expenditures in there to bring it up to par. That's why we were discussing it. So really, your issue should be with the city of Sparks, which, as I have done some development in our life, is not that easy to change the roads, all the floodplains, all the issues that we have talked about. So I'm just asking if you could explain to us, why are we involved in this process?
Again, Pete Etchart, Chief Operating Officer for the school district. Our role as a school district is we promised the voters 15 new schools to combat overcrowding and growth in our region. We are continually looking for land acquisition to build those 3 new high schools, 3 middle schools, and 9 elementary schools. During WC1, we identified the Wild Creek area as an area that we wanted to build a new high school. And we also expressed to the community we wanted to revitalize Hug High School into a career and technical academy. We went in search of land. When we found out that this property could be available for us to build a school in that Wild Creek area, of course, we were very excited. That's where you come in. We are buyers of land. And if the RSCVA Washoe County was interested in selling this parcel, of allowing us to be able to use this for a high school, that's, I think, your role in this. We will be, this is a true community project. Most of the students come from the city of Reno. The property is located in the city of Sparks. It's owned and operated by Washoe County and the RSCVA. So this is a regional, and that's why we went in front of had the joint meeting. We also came in front of you to have a letter of intent saying, is this a project that this community wants to see? Is this a location that is viable, at least at this stage, before we do all the engineering studies, to build this high school? And we were told yes, and that's why we're spending about $200,000 of taxpayer money to do our due diligence on this site. Your involvement, again, is the owner and operator of that property.
And who told you yes, that is available? Which organization told you yes? This property is available to do what you're planning to do?
We approached Washoe County and representatives from the RSCVA about the initial interest in this property and your disposal of the property. Once that was made that yes, it's a potential, then that's where we had the joint meeting with all the agencies to say, is this a project that all the agencies see as viable going forward?
Did this board make a decision, maybe I missed that meeting.
Correct. So this board agreed to execute a letter of intent to basically say it was on board with exploring the potential of this project. So it's not, we don't have any binding agreements to sell or transfer. We're saying that the board is willing to move forward, cooperate with the other local governments in exploring this project.
Mr. Caraselli.
Unfortunately, I think the RSCVA is in limbo. Whatever we had planned on doing or thought about doing, we can't do anything because we're sitting here in the middle of the affair. In other words, we own the land, the Washoe County owns the land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So our long-range plans, that if we had any, which we do, for maybe releasing the golf course to a golf operator and maintain it as a golf course, are on hold. You talk about all the restraints and issues and that you're facing now in order to make this a viable project and prepare the land and so forth and so on. We're kind of still in the dark, but I believe we have to be updated more frequently. But that being said, the percentages, from my aspect anyway, I would guess at 50-50 that it's going to happen. But what happens in your timelines down the road, as an example, you make the transfer somehow, Washoe County, you sell the land to Washoe County with our, whatever it happens to be, and all of a sudden, at the end of the day, something comes up from dealing with the city of Sparks to get your permits and everything, all of a sudden the costs are too high, and it doesn't make any sense to build a high school there. Now, we don't own the land, okay? The county owns the land, and my fear is we're gonna lose the golf course, period. That's my thoughts. In other words, we're more than willing to work with you to a point. You have to keep us informed, but we also have people, the golf course is a viable, I think, what do you call it, recreational spot for the community. And if we just lose it because all of a sudden we were way out in front of our skis and the land goes out of our hands, goes to the county, I don't think they want to run a golf course. So, do you have any thoughts or questions? What would you guess today, if you were a betting man, what do you think the possibility of getting this project done is? 50-50? 60-70?
I think
70-30? What?
Again, Pete Etchard, I think very confidently that we know this is a great location, as I stated, for a high school. We're going to allow the design professionals to do their work and see the viability of every issue that has been brought up by the community, whether it's soils and traffic and floodplains. All those issues are being looked at right now. I feel confident that we're going to be able to work our way through this. As far as the cost issue, we have looked at other alternative sites, and I'll just address it now because I know it continues to come up. We looked at 4 different alternative sites, and we did an internal analysis with our engineers, architects, planners. We also brought in a construction manager and engineer from the outside to help us in that endeavor. Now, that's not a report that we normally make public. It's an internal document because it doesn't, but because, let me say this, because of the sensitivity of this project, we've decided to even take it further. Next week, we're having a meeting with outside external engineers, planners, and architects to come in, and actually we've asked the AGC to actually give us a representative to actually look at them independently for all the alternative sites we've looked at. We feel that this site is very comparable to building on other sites, every one we've looked at. When you look at building on the infill project versus building on virgin ground someplace else, there's always trade-offs. A lot of the infrastructure is already at Wild Creek. We already have existing roads surrounding the property. Other sites, oftentimes we have to bring that infrastructure into that site at a very high cost. So there's always a trade-off. But when we look at this site internally, we feel strongly that this is not going to be more expensive of a site than those other alternatives. Finding 70 to 80 acres in an urban area to build schools, especially as we become more of an urban area, is going to be increasingly hard. So we looked at this opportunity when Wild Creek became available, at least in concept, as an incredible, incredible opportunity for the school district. So I feel strongly that as we get through these studies, and if the engineers and planners tell us that yes, there's no major hurdles that we can't overcome, that this school's going to happen if you're willing sellers. Again, we are buyers of property. That's our role, is to ask to be able to buy this property.
Unfortunately, you're feeling comfortable about the project doesn't make me comfortable. I want to know what to do with that. But that being said, we are in limbo, and we as a board, I think, would agree that we have agreed, we don't want to be in the golf business, number one, and we've agreed that it should remain a golf course, number two, and we're more than willing at some point to sit down and talk to some people that would like to maintain it as a golf course and take it off our hands. But I still, as I said, we are in the middle. We can't make any plans, can't talk to anybody. We're in the dark as far as your process. We have no idea when, at what point in time out there in 2018, 19, whatever, that you're going to have all this due diligence done. And by the time you get that done, you still have to deal with the city of Sparks for all your permits and so forth and so on. So at what point in time are you going to have all your questions answered? You're going to have a actual budget number that makes sense, okay? Not to find out that the budget number is $50 million more than other high schools cost. And you're going to come to Washoe County and RSCVA and say, okay, now we're ready to go. We want to buy the land.
Again, PDOT
So give us a time frame.
Sure.
And give us some dates with updates, so we know where in the hell we are.
I'll give you the dates I know of at this point. November of 2017, so this November, we will have the due diligence completed. That report will then be available to the public. We will continue to design this school. We hope to have those schematic designs done this summer, say by June. Our timeline is to actually break ground on Wild Creek December of 2018. So only a little over a year from now, we would actually be breaking ground on this property and opening this school in August of 2021. So we have a very ambitious timeline. You're going to be seeing those updates as we go along. Right now, I can't really tell you any more than exactly what I told you through each of the steps of the due diligence. November 2017, we will have that report completed. Now, when you get into the cost is a tricky issue. I can't tell you today that the school is going to cost $110 million or $180 million. The cost of the school itself is going to be pretty much the same no matter where we build it. The difference is obviously in the site and all the issues that have been brought up, whether it's the ore ditch or traffic improvements at this site compared to other sites. That's why we're bringing design professionals in to compare these different sites to make sure that not only in the location aspect, as I've said, this is perfect for us from a location standpoint, but let's make sure that this site is actually economically feasible compared to the other sites. That we will be doing. It's more of a comparison though. I can't give you costs without spending probably between $500,000 and $1 million to do the exact same due diligence we're doing on this property to do it to all the other sites. But I think we'll have a very good report that you can look at to say, okay, here's the comparison of sites. But November of 2017, we will be back with the due diligence report.
Mr. Kennedy?
So I've just been asked to reiterate that per NRS 244A624, the RSCVA cannot dispose of or sell the Wild Creek property without Washoe County approval. That also means that the RSCVA has to be willing, so the county could not sell Wild Creek without the RSCVA's approval. But if the RSCVA approves and is willing to go forward, still subject to county approval before a sale can take place.
Just a minute, Mr. Caroselli. Ms. Wowo.
Yeah, so I actually, I would tend to agree with Mr. Fry and Mr. Caroselli as far as the issues with where we stand in putting off the property. Looking at just the financials of Wild Creek since 2005, we're losing $20+ million in that time span. That's a pretty significant amount of money. So with that being said, stepping outside of this representation of the RSCVA board, what are you guys' actual plans with the traffic? Because I think it was really interesting to some of the issues that the residents brought up as far as the safety of the kids and pedestrians crossing the street in such a busy intersection. I mean, right now it's not really feasible for a school. So are there any plans moving forward that we can feel more comfortable that you guys have everything locked and loaded and ready to go and lined up to actually make this a property safe for the kids?
Again, I want to make sure that we allow the design professionals and traffic works who we've hired to do their work and really come up with that independently of us. So I don't want to kind of jump to conclusions before them. But I can tell you this from a school district standpoint. You want to have high schools on main arterials. Elementary schools, you do not. Because elementary schools, often the kids are walking to school. It's more of a neighborhood setting. You don't want to be in a major arterial where you have, traffic restricted by, speed zones on an arterial. At high school level, you want to be in an arterial. You don't want to have all those high school kids driving to school, going through neighborhoods to get to the high school. Being on McCarran is perfect. Hug High School right now, which would be a career and technical academy, is on McCarran. This actually has better access on the McCarran. We'd actually be able to get on the McCarran where on Hug High School site you cannot. This is a great location as far as the traffic goes for us. Now, when you talk about the city of Sparks and traffic, actually most of the students, we anticipate that the attendance boundary for this school will be the existing Hug High School attendance boundary with the remainder of Sun Valley. As I mentioned, keeping all those Sun Valley students together. That also relieves Spanish Springs High School, where a lot of those students in the north half of Sun Valley currently go to Spanish Springs, which is very overcrowded. All those students would come to the new high school at Wild Creek. So obviously there's going to be traffic concerns, and we're going to have to look at on Sullivan Lane. We anticipate that. But again, I want to make sure the engineers have a chance to really give their independent analysis of this without me kind of, making it for them. But this is a great location, we feel, traffic-wise.
Mr. Murdoch, did you?
A couple questions is, Nat and John said some interesting comments on, it is really the county that's going to make a decision here. It's the RSCVA. Yeah, we want out of the golf business, but there's other angles there. Considering the school district right now with all the things that have gone on, I hope this is a win-win for somebody, because I think everybody needs a win. More importantly, you have Hug High sitting there. It is you wanted to make it a tech school, but isn't there a footprint in that neighborhood where the school district should go in and possibly look at something else in that neighborhood to help lift and rise up that area? I mean, is that part of Plan B, or is that in the feasibility study? I mean, you already have a footprint. I think it was mentioned the baseball fields, and is there other land under duress there that can be added to you to do the school there? I'm just asking these questions because I think the public wants to ask those questions, and here we are.
I mean, there's obviously always lots of options for property. I mean, but finding 70, as I said, or 80 acres in an urban environment is really hard. Even the existing Hug High School site is extremely small, and it's not a full-size comprehensive high school. It's about 1,400 students compared to a school that we want to have about 2,500 students at Wild Creek. So instantly we gain 1,000 seats. By then turning Hug High School into a career and technical academy, we could have up to, say, 1,400 students at that career and technical academy. Now we've gained over 2,000 seats. The Hug campus, I feel strongly, is in desperate need of a revitalization, has been for many, many years. And I think one of the real jewels that we will have as a school district is turning that into a career and technical academy. Right now we have one. There's a waiting list. People want to go to AACT, the Academy of Arts, Careers, and Technologies, but they can't always get in. The majority of students who go there actually come from the North Valleys. So having a career and technical academy in that northern area of town is going to be so beneficial to us. We have long-term plans, 20 years out probably, to build another one in the south area. So we have all the areas covered as we move to more career and technical education in our community. Because that's what we're seeing is really the needs for these businesses that are coming here. They want our students to have that career and technical education that maybe we've been lacking in the past. We're going to look at all sites. We've actually asked planners to give us any thoughts they have on sites where we could put it in. Now, obviously, a lot of times when we look in those areas, it means that we'd have to go of trying to acquire private property. One of the really nice aspects of this project at Wild Creek is it's already zoned public facility. That's what we need for zoning to build a high school. Through the City of Sparks process, we'd be going through an administrative review process. It's already zoned for what we want. So we look at this as the perfect location for us in many aspects.
The next question is, as you know, that's Plan A. You've stated Plan A. Plan B is you got to get the county to approve it. But Plan C and D and E, what other school sites do you have? So we all know in the room that to Nat's comment was, what happens if you find out it's $1 billion to do it, and it doesn't make sense at that point?
Yeah, we will hopefully produce that report in pretty short order. As I indicated, we're going to meet next week with design professionals independent of the school district so they can look at our report, or maybe we'll just have them do it completely independently to have their input on other sites. Now, when we created that internally to say, let's look at all the options, and we came up with, I believe, 5, we did that internally with one external engineer and construction manager. Now we want to have a whole new team come in and look at it independently. So we can say to the community, this has been looked at from a cost standpoint, access, constructability, all those issues. So we will have that report, and I'm hoping we can have it here in the next, I'm hoping, month.
Mr. Caroselli.
First of all, I'm a big proponent of education, and I believe the growth and success of Washoe County is going to be based on the foundation of better education. I agree with that 1,000%, okay? That still doesn't make me comfortable. My next question would be, as a board member, I want to get some input from the other board members. What would we all feel comfortable with? And if they have to be private, it's private information, we would definitely keep it private. What kind of time frame would we like to, increments of time, would we like to see that we get reports and an update as to where you are and what you're running up against as far as hurdles at that point, and what do you still think the chances are 100% that you're going to move forward? We'd like to have those. I would anyway, and I would think some of the other board members would like to have maybe a monthly update or whatever, so we kind of know where things are going, because again, as I said, we're sitting here in limbo. We would like to do something if we owned the golf course right now, and that wasn't a choice for a new school. We would try to be out there talking about how we're going to find potentially a company that would want to take over Wild Creek and maintain it as a golf course. So maybe get some input from the other board members as to what would we like a report every month, every whatever, so we're informed.
Any other comments from the board? Questions? Mr. Wowo?
Yeah, sorry, not to beat a dead horse, but I think I don't think it's going to be our choice really whether or not you guys build a school again. Everybody on this board has voiced it already. That's really going to come down to the county whether or not this project is approved. Which, me being understanding the process, I think I think you have a pretty good shot. But with that being said, I just want to make sure that you guys are actually doing it right. I may date myself a little bit here, but Spanish Springs High School was built in 2001. When I graduated there in 2006, it was already overcrowded. That was supposed to be a school that was meant for the future, that was meant for a lot of people moving into the area, and yet we had trailers outside of the school already. A lot of WC1, the first project you guys are using the money on, is expanding to Monty Ranch. Similar problem as Spanish Springs High School and North Valley High School. You guys thought it was going to be big enough, under-anticipated how many people were going to move to the area, and it was overcrowded. So I just want to make sure that when you guys go forward with this project, if and or when you guys go forward with this project, that is done right, so that the residents aren't sitting here thinking, wow, now our neighborhood's overcrowded, now this is overcrowded, but make sure that the school is actually feasible for the students and that you guys are preparing the environment for them to actually get the education for this community. So more of a statement rather than a question, but I'm just making sure you guys are doing your due diligence to make sure that you guys are looking forward ahead of time.
I'd love to address that just for a second, though. That's the beauty of WC1. I think the issue the Washoe County School District has had for decades and decades and decades is that it never had a sustainable funding source to actually deal with not only the repair needs of our existing schools, but to deal with overcrowding and to deal with growth. So thankfully, based on the commitment of the community toward education, WC1 passed. And now we have a sustainable source of funding to start getting caught up on all those needs. Now, this problem wasn't created overnight. It's not going to be solved overnight. But I can tell you, as we start building these new schools, our first and foremost, our goal is to deal with the schools that are already overcrowded, and then to start working on growth. At the same time, taking care of those critical repair needs to keep our existing schools operating. Never, I don't think if you talk to people who have been in this community a long time, has the school district had the resources on the capital side to ever address that. So when they were opening new schools, yeah, they were instantly overcrowded because they didn't have the resources to actually build what this district needed. The Monty Ranch High School was built as a 1,400 student type of high school with the known plans that you need to expand it someday. It's exactly the same floor plan as you said at Spanish Springs and North Valleys without the addition. Those other two schools were built with the addition from day one. The Monty Ranch was not. When WC1 passed, the first project we knew we needed was to build that addition to stay off of double sessions there. So we've got a plan, and it's going to take some time. That 10-year plan is going to take every bit of that. Now, that being said, how fast are these schools going to happen? How fast are you going to see them? Well, a lot of that's growth dependent. These first two middle schools we're getting ready to get started on, the first new elementary school, is completely based on being overcrowded, having team teaching, and all the things that are going on in our schools. The following schools you're going to see after that are dependent on growth. As we see development happen, as these developments get approved, then you're going to see those schools happening. But we have every intention of building all 15 schools that were shown on the ballot for WC1.
Mr. Caraselli.
One last question, I hope. What's in your timeline, and if, let's say at the end of your timeline, you've answered all your questions, you've come up with a budget that makes sense and so forth and so on. Who makes the final decision from WCSD that you will move forward and make an offer on the land?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Again, we hope to be done with our due diligence in November, and it's our goal right now that we would be in front of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees in November to accept that and forget their recommendation, or I should say their authority, to move forward and make an offer to the RSCVA Washoe County in regards to purchasing the property. So I would say November of 2017.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, second question. So if they make that decision at that point, and then and this is November of this year?
Correct.
Okay, you come forward in 30 days and make us an offer, right? And that we can't refuse, I guess, because the county is going to very likely we can't make the decision. And all of a sudden the land transfers title. And then at the end of the day, something comes up and says, oh my gosh, the budget, and after we got in there and done our due diligence and priced it out, it doesn't make sense to build it here. Now here we are, back to where I thought we might be. That's my fear.
Well, we're going to do our best to alleviate that fear, that from the Washoe County School District standpoint, the cost of what the improvements are at Wild Creek compared to other sites. The cost of the school is going to be the cost of the school. We really don't think of it as, is that school going to cost, I see a lot of comparisons by sometimes people in the public saying, well, it only costs this in Arkansas, it costs this much in California. We are our own region, and really what you need to compare is, what are we putting into our schools? What are the systems, what are the programs we put into our schools? What is the square foot per student that we do in our schools? On September 28th, we're going to have a Capital Funding Protection Committee meeting. We're going to walk our citizen group through this issue. And I think what you're going to see from what I hear from the experts is what we put into our schools, both from a program standpoint, square footage per student standpoint, is actually really low on a national level. We do not build, these high-end, high-end schools, but we build solid schools, because the issue is we have in the Washoe County School District is schools need to be built to last. Schools that we build now are going to be here, in my eyes, 100 years from now. DePoli Middle School, which is our last school, is 10 years old now. I have a hard time envisioning 90 years from now it's still not going to be here. So when we design our schools, we design them with that in mind. They need to be well-built schools. We look at the operating cost as a huge part of this. Sometimes that initial cost is higher because we need to know that operating cost, as we operate the school for the next 100 years, is going to be in line. So we do a lot of things like ground source heat pumps and all these different things to keep our operating costs down. But this school has to be built to last. We don't build Cadillacs, but we build a solid school. And that cost is going to be the same whether I build it here or I build it on another location.
Mr. Final question, is HUG at capacity now?
No, HUG is actually one high school that's actually slightly below capacity.
Thank you.
And that being said, we have a lot of variances out of HUG right now, and that's something I believe can be corrected with building a new school.
Any other questions from the board? I just have one comment, Mr. Etchart. My greatest fear in all this is we lose a high school and we lose a golf course. So is there a number that you would not go over?
You know, the cost question, again, is a really difficult one. And what we're seeing right now, and I think everyone's seeing this in the community, the escalating cost of construction. I mean, every time I look at the cost of our projects, it's higher than I looked at it last week. But that being said, there's other factors that go into this. One is on, again, September 28th at our Capital Funding Protection Committee, and it's an open meeting, the public is invited. We're going to have our financial advisor there to walk the community through what we're seeing on our revenue side. Now, the bad news is the costs are going up. The good news is our revenues are going up. Now, I'm not sure if our revenues are going to keep pace with the really escalating costs of inflation on construction, but there is a correlation between those. And as we go through the cost of our schools for the next 10 years and building these 15 schools, we feel confident that with our revenues, with the costs, that we're going to still be able to make our commitment to the community of building all of the schools. Again, that 9-year plan that we came out with in WC1 may be 13 years. That's very growth dependent. It depends on how the kids come, but we are confident we'll build all the schools. And if we commit to buying the property or making an offer to the RSCVA Washoe County, we totally envision building that school.
So my understanding is there's roughly $750 million to build these new schools. If this school costs $250 million, is it going to go forward?
I can't give you a number like that today. I can say that there's incredible work being done by that educational specification committee, the one I talked about with the students and administrators and design professionals, to look at every aspect. The value engineering effort that's gone into these schools to make sure that we are making the most efficient school we can has been tremendous. We feel confident that we're going to be able to build this school in our timeline and also under our cost. I think we will be able to build this school. I feel very, very confident about that.
All right, Mr. Caraselli.
We still haven't, anybody else has mentioned a time frame. Should we get updates once a month, or?
I don't know that there's anything to update until we have the presentation in November.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I don't think, obviously, Mr. Etchart doesn't have any numbers or anything to talk about today that
sounds fine.
Have substantial to tell us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farahi? Did you have a question, Mr. Farahi? Mr. Murdoch?
Just a question. Are you going to reach out into the community besides you come here and you present to us and we get a few people, but what are you going to do in your due diligence in and around that part of the land you're looking at in that community to talk about this? Is the school board liable to do that, or is that something the school district has to do, to talk to the locals and to reach out in that neighborhood?
Yeah, we'll definitely be reaching out. I don't think I can commit today to say exactly what that process will be.
That's what I'm asking. Is there a process for, besides us, because you've got the county involved and other people, so that's why I would ask that.
Every time we do anything in the school districts, obviously a very public process. So when we have our due diligence report done in November, we'll be going to our school board with that. That's obviously an open meeting, so that all the results for that will be for the trustees to look at, and also for the committee, or I'm sorry, for the community to actually make comment on. So that would be the first step. Now, what the second step is, as far as making an offer, if that were to happen, that would also be done obviously in a public format with going, I would assume, to the RSCVA in Washoe County for any kind of offer, but I don't have any information on how that would be. But I think there'll be plenty of opportunities for the community to see exactly what's going on in this process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I think we've beaten this horse enough. Let's move on. Thank you, Mr. Etchart, for your comments.
Thank you.
We're waiting on the chairman to show up, and I'm told he'll be here in about 5 minutes, so I'm going to skip over E2 and go to E3. Update on the National Bowling Stadium by Mr. Chisel.
Good morning, Robert Chisel, Director of Finance for the record. Just going to get a quick update on the National Bowling Stadium and the Reno Event Center. As you all know, the City of Reno actually owns the two facilities downtown and is responsible for the capital improvement and capital maintenance of those two facilities. The funding for the capital improvements is derived from a separate $2 surcharge that goes to the City of Reno and is used specifically for tourism improvement. The RSCVA, though, is responsible for the operation of the Reno Event Center and the National Bowling Stadium. That is through an agreement through April of 2022. In your packet is a list of the completed capital improvements that have been done to those two facilities over the last several years with those $2 surcharge. The surcharge committee has been meeting, and the last meeting was August 1st, and they have directed staff to start working on the improvements of the 4th floor remodel of the National Bowling Stadium and refresh of the entrance of the National Bowling Stadium. The 4th floor remodel is required in an agreement that the RSCVA, the City of Reno, and the USBC have for the bowling stadium, and that goes through 2026. The capital improvements required in that agreement are the demolition of the stadium seating on the 4th floor, a sports cafe area on the 4th floor, and movement of the settees where the bowlers are back to add additional space. That project has to be completed by February 1st, 2020. The City of Reno City Council yesterday approved the agreement with MBA, the architects, to begin work on that design and the work on the 1st floor refresh of the 1st floor. The 1st floor refresh is primarily making the doors ADA compliant and cleaning up some of the carpet area in the 1st floor. And that should be done by the February of 2018 in time for the women bowlers to arrive. And also in your packet is any other future projects that are going on for the bowling stadium and the event center. The one big project for the event center that is going on is the repair and maintenance of the flexible seating that is in the event center. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the board? It's an information item, so we don't require any action on this item. Can you stretch like 2 more minutes? Just kidding. All right, we're gonna we'll move up now to E2, and I'm sure that the chairman should be here any moment. And I asked Mr. George Combs to speak on this item and a possible solution for us. So, Mr. Combs, you're up on public comment.
Thank you for having me here today. My name is George Combs. I'm the general manager of Reno Rodeo. I've been in town about 2.5 years, 3 rodeos, and I think we've came a long ways working as partners with the RLEC. And we're 98 years old. We're moving towards our 100-year rodeo. 1.5 years ago, we worked with On Strategy to put together a 5-year strategic plan. Our plan is to build a new facility, outdoor rodeo arena for Reno Rodeo for the next 100 years. And there's a lot of rumors been out on the street that we're looking to move here, we're looking to move there, trying to decide, the RSCVA not wanting to run the facility no more. I think some of that has been ratified here recently. I was in attendance a week or so ago at one of your committee meetings, and you've set forth to spend some money to fix up the facility, do some deferred maintenance. We want to partner in the future of what happens to this facility. We had a legacy committee meeting last night, voted unanimously to stay at the Livestock Event Center. We're not going to move forward looking for other property. Of course, this has to be ratified with my board of directors, but the committee, kind of the same as your committee that you're putting forth today, to spend some money and fix up the facility. It's in dire need of these. This isn't going to bring more revenue to Reno right away, but it's stuff that needs to be done with the future growth of that facility. I think we can fix all the problems. I have discussed with the county about the removal of the armory building at an expense that the Reno Rodeo will partake and take that expense to help with, to start the, I think if we raise the image a little bit there. Once we get started, the way we go. I think we changed some of our strategic plan last night. I think aggressively we can't have the new arena built by 2020 like we wanted, but it's a working document, so we extended that another year and would hope that the RSCVA and we can be great partners and move forward and make this a great facility and get it back up to where it needs to be. Thank you. And I'll open to ask any questions.
Generally, we don't take questions on public comment, but
okay,
we'll make an exception if there is any. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Combs.
Thank you. I'm not in support or opposition to allocating CapEx dollars to the RLEC, but I strongly feel whatever decision is made needs to be a part of a comprehensive plan regarding the facility. As part of the RSCVA's goal initiative for the RLEC, it mentions that we will host a special board meeting or discussion to determine the future of the facility and the future level of investment. There was a failed attempt to get the RLEC off the RSCVA's books this last legislative session, and there were a variety of financial packages discussed. I would like to recommend that prior to our board retreat, we arrange a meeting with all the interested parties on how we can proceed in a long-term plan for this facility. I would hope that at the retreat, we will have some definitive options on how we want to proceed. And I think we must stop. It's time to stop kicking the can down the road on the RLEC. It's time to make some hardcore decisions. Let's get some input, and let's hopefully make them at the retreat. Thank you.
I think we have brought a new CEO on board and a new team, and it is imperative that they bring a plan to this board, comprehensive plan about what are our options with the resources we have, and study that 5-year strategic plan and make any revisions that the new team and the new CEO see in that plan that we need to make. So we invest our very limited resources where we get the biggest bang for the buck. This is how we have operated this organization for all these years that I've been watching, piecemeal by piecemeal. The time has come for Phil Delone and his team, as he has indicated he will do, to put a comprehensive plan, how much resources we're going to have in the next 5 to 7, 10 years, where are the areas that we can be most impactful and get return on our investment, and look at that plan before we decide where we're going to spend over $2 million, whether this is the right place to do it. So I'm totally against voting for this issue till that plan has been brought from our CEO and we listen to his recommendation. He's the CEO. He's the one who runs this organization. He's the one and his team who understand our business. For this board to make decisions like this in a vacuum is totally wrong.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
I'd just like to say I agree with both Mr. Casarelli and Mr. Farahi. I believe that strategy is definitely necessary before we even think about expending $2 million. You know, the return on investment has to be looked at, and I think we need to look at all avenues where we can possibly generate revenue there. I think those should be brought to the table. I also think we need to look at other issues, maybe internal issues. We're operating at 90, 95, 96% labor to revenue right now in that facility. That's crazy. I don't think anybody at this table would agree that that's a good number. So I think that we do need to do our due diligence. I think that we do need to get together, maybe make this one of the major topics at the retreat, and possibly have a meeting beforehand to discuss the ramifications of an investment of that size.
Anyone else? Mr. Murdoch.
Okay, so state owns the land, county has the lease, and RSCVA runs it. The rodeo is iconic, 98 years. I agree with Mr. Curicelli that we need a plan. However, we are part of the community as a whole, all of us. And, you know, room tax helps drive room nights, but this is a heritage and a facility that is historical and part of our deal. Do we really think the state is going to let it go into dilapidation, or do we think the county's going to let it? You have a facility there. We better figure it out. And I'm just going to say, I'm for us having a long-term plan. Rodeo is ready to get to the table. I think you got to bring the state back to the table. But you can't let it dilapidate and just sit there and not put some monies into it. It's got to still be, at least, if you do turn it over and you give the keys to somebody, you better turn it over in decent condition. If you have a quarterback that's broken down and he can't throw the ball anymore, you go buy him and trade him to a team to think you're going to win something. This place isn't even going to win if we don't at least put something into it. There is some budget for it, but it's got to be fixed up. It's still our job in the community to do things like this. Then we can, I agree with us not being in the facilities business, but how do we do it? Let's do it right, let's do it fair, and let's give everybody a fair shot at succeeding. So that's my comments. And so Phil, you got to get very creative.
So am I hearing from the board that you'd like to table this item until the retreat to give Mr. DeLone some time to come up with a plan? Mr. Wilwell?
Yeah, I would actually agree with all parties that have already spoken. I think Mr. Murdoch makes a really good point. I can throw out another analogy aside from the quarterback one, but it's similar to a house. You know, how much are you actually going to get for that house if it's in bad condition? I think $2.75 million, maybe stretching it a bit, but when I did tour the space the other day with Rhonda Leach, I was looking at some of the issues that we do have with that facility, and I don't think the state's going to take it back in this condition. Putting $2.75 million and then after already losing, I haven't gone through the numbers exact over the last couple of years, but we are losing a lot of money in that, and I agree that we need to get out of the facilities business. This is something that I've been in agreement with before stepping onto this board, and something that in the community we've spoken about. The chamber sees it also as an issue with having to use this kind of tax dollars with spending it on a facility. So that's where I agree with Farahi and Caricelli, is that we are wasting money on this to some degree, but you have to look at it from the full spectrum. Put it in the condition that we want it to be in so we can get it off of our hands, but I do think we should table this to a different time where we can allow Mr. DeLone and his team to actually put together a comprehensive plan.
Mr. Farahi.
I think it's imperative, again, that we do not look at this facility as by itself. We need to look at the whole broader plan, strategic plan of what this organization is going to be accomplishing in years to come, where we need to put our resources, then put those resources where we get the biggest return on investment. I remember that we invited Las Vegas Convention Authority CEO Rossi came and spoke to our board last year. And he said it's imperative that you guys decide what business you want to be in, and then be at best in that business. Don't do everything and not do any one of them exceptionally well. We know that on these livestock centers, South Point in Las Vegas, and a couple of our board members went and looked at it. They built a fabulous facility. There's no way for us to compete with them. We know Denver is expanding their facility in a tune of about $1 billion. So we have to be realistic. We gotta know where we are heading and put our resources in those areas. So when we're talking about the plan, I'd like to ask Phil that when you come, you're coming with your comprehensive plan, not only about this facility, but overall, where our goals and objectives are going to be in the next 3, 5, 7 years, and where we should put our resources to get the biggest bang for the buck.
Yes, Mr. Caraselli.
I think the board, part of our job is to have fiduciary responsibility. So this is, to me, what this falls under. But I'd just like to give you an example of what we're facing there. And I'll just read it off here. But if we assume that our LEC will generate 40,000 room nights, which is about where it's going to be, my understanding is that, well, there was 33,000 actuals in 15-16, and they projected a 20% increase, which is 39,000 for 16-17. So let's say 40,000. Assume an ADR, cash ADR of $70. Room tax generated, room tax now is our revenue. That's how we operate, with the room tax dollars. Room tax generated from the RLEC would be 40,000 times $70, because that's about the average rate, I understand, that we get from events at the RLEC. That would be $2.8 million, right? Times 13.5% room tax, which is $378,000. But we don't get 13.5%. We actually get 8.625% that the RSCVA gets to spend. So if you multiply that by 8.625, you come up with a return on the room nights of $241,500. Okay, that's what we would generate as profit for the RLEC based on the room nights we get out of there. Now, in light of that number, we look at our budgets, and we are losing in excess of $600,000 a year annually, and you can see the model doesn't sustain itself. So pretty much, as the facility stands today, and with the income you're getting from it to the RLEC, to the bottom line, we're losing money every time we put an event in there because our labor exceeds what we're going to end up in return. So that's just an example of what we're facing. So when you face these kind of issues, you really have to look long and hard. And as I said in the beginning, I'm not in support or opposition of the CapEx numbers we're talking about, but I'm in support of doing some due diligence, dealing with some numbers that make sense, and as a board member, having fiduciary responsibility for why I'm sitting here. And that's, to me, is a pretty classic example of why we cannot kick the can down the road anymore. We have to make some hard decisions. And Mr. DeLone certainly should gather the information, but he hasn't been here that long, but it's going to, but he hopefully will propose something that makes sense, and let's get there and get our teeth into it, throw the poison on the table at the retreat, and come up with some answers. I'm tired of sitting here talking about, we can't do that, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So that we went from 13 to 9, let's make some decisions on this board.
Thank you. Some pretty fancy mathematics there. Thank you. But that puts it in perspective for me. Mr. DeLone, did you want to weigh in on this subject at all? Do you want to make a case for approving this today or tabling it?
I would suggest tabling it until the retreat. Any further discussion or action on Livestock Event Center or any other of the facilities?
Are you pretty clear on what the board is asking of you?
Yes.
Okay. So I need a motion to table this to the retreat. Mr. Murdoch?
And Phil, that means getting all the entities that were here last to the table to take it, the state, the rodeo, and you know what I mean? It's going to take a lot of due diligence on that to get that team together. So when we get to the retreat, you've got it. Thank you.
Still looking for a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mayor Sheevy, second by Mr. Murdoch. All those in favor of tabling this till this item until the retreat, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Moving right along. I'm going to lose some board members here in about 15 minutes, so let's be as judicious as we can with our time. Finance, fiscal year 17-18 tourism surcharge report. Mr. Chisel.
Robert Chisel again. I'll be real quick. As the board is aware, in 2015, the legislative session
passed a additional $2 per night surcharge on hotels outside the downtown area and $1 for downtown hotels. In fiscal year 2016, the surcharge generated $4.2 million and there were no expenditures. In the most recent fiscal year 2017, the unaudited numbers show the surcharge generated about $5 million and there were expenditures of $3.2 million, all on sales and marketing, providing an estimated balance of $6.1 million as of the beginning of this fiscal year. Based on the strategic plan and the approved budget for fiscal 2018, the surcharge is anticipated to have estimated revenues of $5 million and expenditures of $8.8 million in fiscal year 2018. The expenditures are segregated into the areas of air service, $500,000, $4.5 million for marketing, $1.9 million for capital improvements at the convention center, and then there is a potential of $1.8 million for the livestock event center. This would leave an estimated ending balance of $2.4 million in the surcharge. Any questions?
Questions? Okay. It's an information item, so move
Okay.
on to a review of the 2016-17 transit lodging.
F2, Robert Chisel again for the record. This is a report on the auditing performance of the room tax section, and I'd like to actually take a minute to recognize Karen Barnes and Robert Douglas and the excellent work that they do. They have impressed me beyond belief with what they are able to do when you consider this section used to have 6 auditors doing the same amount of work that these 2 auditors do, and they do deserve a lot of credit for the fine work that they do. Basically, there were 42 audits in fiscal year 2017, which resulted in additional findings of $189,000 and collected assessments of $65,000. Their goal is to perform audits on hotel casinos on a 3-year cycle and then all other property on a 5-year cycle. And, you know, part of the audits are not to find errors, but to help make sure we are in compliance, and I think that's something they do. They have a great rapport with the properties and making sure getting those questions answered before they become problems. Would be happy to answer any questions, but I would like Robert and Karen to stand up so that we could recognize them. And I can embarrass them a little bit. Hey.
Any questions from the board? All right, thank you, Mr. Chisel. Let's move on to F3, the RSCVA June 2017 Report of Operations and Transient Lodging Statistics.
Okay, again, I'll be real quick. Robert Chisel for the record. These are the unaudited results for fiscal year 2017. We will have the audit completed and presented to the board. The auditors are actually, Bailey, are with us right now performing the audit. So these numbers are unaudited, but real quickly, room tax revenues were 6.5% above budget at $30 million, resulting in an additional $1.8 million in tax revenue for the authority. This is a $2.6 million increase from prior year, and what's interesting, this is the highest room tax revenue year for the RSCVA. The next record was back in fiscal year 2000 at $28.5 million. Total tourism surcharge was $5 million, or 7.5% above budget. Facility revenues were also up $400,000. Operating expenses were below budget at $1.8 million, and non-operating expenses were $4.2 million below budget. Overall, it was a very good year financially for the authority, and as I said, we'll bring the audited financial statements back to the board for review. I know you're in a hurry, so I'm quickly flying through these numbers. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? This discussion and possible action, so we make a motion to accept the report.
Motion to accept the report.
Motion by Mayor Sheevy, seconded by Mr. Murdock. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on. G1, review and evaluation of the President and CEO's first 6 months. Mr. DeLone.
Just give me a moment. Jeff.
We need to get a shot of yours at 11, so kind of pushing through this. Freeway system.
Where's the keypad?
Screen larger.
Can you get the mouse to work? Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you. Now just forward back here. Thanks very much. After starting with you on January 3rd, 2017, the Board of Directors provided me with 4 distinct areas of goals and objectives: visitation and destination awareness, direct room night growth, facility efficiency, and an organizational stability. In taking visitation and destination awareness, there were 3 subsets of the goal: evaluate and determine the revised destination brand and begin implementation, implement the design phase of a new exhibit booth incorporating new branding, and launch a new website. And all 3 of those subsets and that goal have been accomplished. We've overhauled and launched the new website successfully, a new exhibit booth, a city model, and high-definition video were launched and showcased in Toronto at the American Society of Association Executives meeting 2 weeks ago. And of course, as everyone knows, our new marketing and advertising brand has been launched and is receiving rave reviews. This is our new booth for those of you who haven't seen it. It's a 20 by 20 island, and this is the trade show hall of the American Society of Association Executives. It was the talk of the show. It truly was. In a moment, you'll see our new city model, and I want to thank Mike Larraguetta for staying up late at night gluing all the pieces together. But it was so interesting seeing not only our customers' awe about our city model that features all the hotels, airport convention center, and our industrial park, as well as Lake Tahoe, including the Crystal Bay sign on top of your building there, Mr. Wood. But what I thought was fascinating was so many other cities came by our booth and flipped their name badge around so you couldn't read where they were from. And they sat there and oohed and awed and said, oh, we're going to get one of those. And I think that was a good benchmark to have. Here we have one of our salespeople demonstrating to a customer on the left some of the detail in that model. And to give you a refresh, that's where we were. And now and this is where we are today. Hope you like it. Sure. That's where we were with take a good look with Railroad Orange and yeah. You know, we asked the salespeople that were present, well, what do you think of the new booth? And they all liked it. Why wouldn't you like it? And over the 3 days of the trade show, you could tell how proud they were to stand in that booth because it really was the most unique booth. And also I'd like to thank the Peppermill for providing high-definition nature video on Northern Nevada. That's what you see on the screens. There are no hotels. There's no convention center. It's just imagery about the outdoors of Northern Nevada. It was really, really well received. Obviously, we've launched our new brand. Everyone is familiar with the advertising and the marketing we're doing featuring our new upgraded look, so we won't spend any more time there. Primary goal number 2 is direct room night growth. This is very important. We have a big investment in our remote, or what I like to call our regional sales force, and I was asked to mentor those folks where necessary, meet and engage with our core strategic customers. It's more important to meet and engage really with every customer coming to our community and evaluate industry sponsorships and implement those deemed effective and valuable. This has been accomplished. We've hired a Sacramento sales position. California, and especially Northern California, still is Reno's single largest, strongest market. And a lot of business comes to our community, not only through FIT travelers, but as conventions, as meetings as well. And we've also hired an Atlanta Southeast sales position. And I will have to say that salesperson engagement is always ongoing. You know, that's the world I originally came from, and I understand the power of having a strong sales team. And I make it a personal habit of engaging constantly and consistently with all of the strategic customers that come to our region. Also part of the goal was to evaluate our sponsorships. And we were spending quite a bit of money in sponsorships, and the value of those at times could be questionable. With the American Society of Association Executives, we are finishing our 6th year at a sponsorship level of $320,000. And after evaluating that sponsorship, not only with the directors and VPs of sales in town, but also all of our senior staff, we are lowering that sponsorship to a more palatable level of $80,000 to $100,000, which still gives us branding throughout their trade show, as well as a choice piece of real estate in the exhibit hall, which is most important. In my first week, we had to deal with the Professional Convention Management Association that was asking us for a $250,000 annual sponsorship. We did not engage that sponsorship. They only have 1,600 meeting planners as part of their membership. There are very few CEO decision makers in that organization. So we backed away from that $250,000 commitment. With Meeting Planners International, again, this is mostly meeting planners, not primarily decision makers. And our $150,000 annual sponsorship is going to be changed to a $30,000 to $50,000 sponsorship and focus on the trade show event and client engagement. When you add up just those 3 areas of reducing some of our sponsorship and not engaging PCMA, the savings there total $610,000. Facility efficiency. There's been a lot of talk about facility efficiency today. We are using more effective use of our facility resources, staffing, and cross-utilization. For example, Trent LaFerrier has been promoted. He's our senior facilities person, and he not only runs the facilities at our Reno Convention Center, but he floats between the National Bowling Stadium as well as the Reno Events Center, keeping an eye on our plant and facilities there. Jennifer Powers, our new director of customer satisfaction, also has that responsibility. She floats between the Reno Events Center where we do convention business, sometimes in the National Bowling Stadium, and also this week she's at the Reno Convention Center taking care of American Legion. I was asked to participate in the Reno Sparks Convention Center redesign process, the charrette. We're way past the charrette now, and I'll touch upon that later, and assess the future management of all of our facilities, which I think we've touched upon. For the most part, this has been accomplished. We are still going through the process of, well, what happens with Wild Creek, and what happens with the Reno Sparks Livestock Event Center, and what happens with the future of the Reno Events Center. In the meantime, we've cut payroll at Wild Creek. We're active in looking at the divestiture of the golf facility. There is discussion going on with an operator to transfer management of the Reno Event Center as well as our liabilities to a private operator. This is being fueled by the city of Reno. And again, we utilize our employees across facilities, and with our Reno Sparks Convention Center design remodel process, we're recommending new carpeting, new paint schemes, and new trade show lighting, going from metal halide to more efficient LED lighting. Organizational stability, goal number 4. This was real key. Over the year prior to my coming on board, the RSCVA went through a kind of a roller coaster of management. And through this process, I was asked to search, interview, hire, and onboard a human resources manager. Sherry Neal is sitting here at the table today, and Sherry's done an excellent job in adding a higher level of professionalism, documentation, policies, and procedures to the entire HR process. And Sherry, thank you for being such a great employee that you are. We've onboarded a vice president of sales, Mike Larraguetta, who has come with a tremendous amount, great skill set, not only from his many years here in the market, but nearly 15 years being out of market. You combine those two talents, and they've really enriched the entire senior management team. We've also taken the step, after many years of neglect, to onboard an executive director of leisure sales in Art Jimenez. Quite frankly, we couldn't have asked for a better person with his 17 years in charge of leisure sales at the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. He's hit the ground running and doing an excellent job. And Hillary Burton is new to us, as I've said previously. She manages our Sacramento presence as well as manages our Southern California and Portland, Oregon offices. Another a core responsibility was my involvement in reviewing our financials and oversight of the fiscal year 17-18 budget process and development, which the board has previously approved. But through that process, that's brought us Robert Chisel, who has a stellar reputation in the community from his time as Director of Finance and Administration for the City of Reno. Meet and develop meaningful relationships with community partners. I really hate this goal. It's added 15 pounds to my waistline with all of the lunches, but it's important to maintain the RSCVA's relationships and presence in the community. And I certainly understand that, and I know all of you do as well. We're strong with the airport, the chamber, EDON, Lake Tahoe. All of these people play a meaningful role, and I think today we have a very, very strong relationship. Andy Chapman, I'm going to point you out. Andy was kind enough to come to the podium earlier this morning and thank everyone in the for Interbike and our efforts there, but we also have to thank you. You were part of that process too. I think we were the only people ever allowed to land a helicopter right on Lakeshore Boulevard in Incline Village. And Andy, you were the one who pulled all those strings and really made stuff happen for us and for Interbike. And we owe you a great debt. Meeting with our CVA departments and facilities. As a CEO, yes, you can engage every day with directors and managers, but I find it extremely useful to also engage with all of our employees, and we do that through employee roundtables. I meet with the line employees at the Livestock Events Center and at the bowling stadium, at the convention center, and it is amazing what I will learn. I think one of our pin setters said, we need to open the stadium club to the public. And I asked why. He said, you have no idea how many times a day people rap on that door and say, gee, can we play in this bowling stadium? And obviously we just don't open the doors based on just that. But this guy was the one who kind of fueled the idea of saying, hey, let's look at opening up the King Bing Club to the public and get some bowling business in on the weekend. And we're going through the numbers now to make sure that that's financially feasible. We've also hired a local corporate sales manager. This was part of the strategic plan, and this person, Morgan Edwards, a very cheerful, engaged, energetic young lady. Her job's to go out and solicit the 400 to 500 companies in northern Nevada. And she has 3 responsibilities. She's there to find out, well, what kind of inbound corporate travel do you bring into this area? What kind of meetings and events do you have? And also to solicit their catering business too. Communications. This happens to be one of my personal beliefs that we have to tell our story better. Prior to starting on January 3rd, we did send out a consumer newsletter to 40,000 individuals weekly. But when I was in association management as CEO of a large convention and trade show that happens to come to Nevada, in those 4.5 years, I never received one piece of information from Reno, not one. And so changing positions and coming here in my current role and responsibility, we've now started up 3 e-newsletters. The first is what we call our travel executive update. That goes out every 30 days to 4,500 travel executives and decision makers, and that really feeds our leisure and turn travel market with news of what's going on in our community. It has news about renovations and new buildings and new air service and entertainment and all the things you would want to know if you were a travel executive. We send out 16,000 e-newsletters to meeting professionals and CEOs. We boast and brag about the large conventions we have coming to town. We boast and brag about our increased air service, and we boast and brag about all of the hotel products that now are shiny and new in our region. Also, to communicate with our local and regional stakeholders, we produce, after every RSCVA board meeting, what we call our executive update. And this recaps on one page some of the issues and the votes taken by the board, as well as other news that's newsworthy to those folks. If we pause for a moment and look at the corporate scorecard, in July, every market segment was up. Hotels, motels, RVs, timeshares, vacation rentals, cash room nights, ADR, and tax revenue were all at very high levels. Our unaudited July revenues are the highest on record and are $4.8 million over the previous high in August of 2016, a year ago. Highest cash room nights were in July 2017 at 376,000, and this is the highest room night consumption since September of 2007. We're also experiencing the highest ADR ever at $109.51, and occupancy the highest ever at 81.8%. Some highlights for this coming fiscal year, actually the fiscal year that we're in. We need to have master plans for each facility. What will these facilities be for room night generation in the future, or are they just going to be a fiscal drain? That is really the question at hand. We need to maximize our client engagement and solicitation through strengthened and expanded sales force tactics. That's a fancy way of saying we've got some of the best salespeople in the business right now. We've really worked hard to recruit people that have prior experience in gaming, who have a proven track record, and they've joined the RSCVA, and we need to let them get out there and sell some business for us. We also need to develop new markets, specifically internationally, and prepare this destination to be China ready. China ready, that's a phrase that a lot of people use. You just don't put your shingle out in Chinese and say, hi, welcome. There's a lot of prep work that you need to do. You need to, all hotels and restaurants need to accept Union Pay, which is a Chinese credit card, because they do not carry Visa, MasterCard, or American Express, and there are other criteria necessary as well. Art Jimenez is heading this up, and I would say in a year we will be China ready. Continue to increase our airlift through strategic partners and financial support via RASC, the Regional Airline Corporation. We've recently, at the last board meeting, upped our contribution to as high as $250,000. Air service is key. You know, EDON has been saying that they believe in 10 years that the region may be as many as 600,000 residents. Airlines follow demand, they don't create it. So if we hit those targets of 500 to 600,000 residents, that air service will follow. And with our marketing and advertising campaign, we need to continue our predetermined path in the target markets of Southern California, the Bay Area, and Seattle, and let those bake for a while and see how they do. I'll throw some catnip out there and say we also, through our long-range planning, need to explore expanding the Reno Sparks Convention Center, and I'll tell you why we need to look at that. We've been successful in luring SCI back to Reno in 2019, 20, and 21. We've just secured Interbike for a 5-year run through 2022. We are close to booking another 20,000 room nights citywide, which I'll leave nameless in this public setting. And at ASAE Toronto, we ran into another association that has not been to Reno since 1989, and they would like to come back, and I instinctively feel that we will book them. But all 4 of those groups that I've referenced, they have one thing in common. They all barely fit in our convention center. And in Interbike's case and in Safari Club's case, they had to shrink the size of the show in order to squeeze into the convention center. So as the community grows and air service follows, in 8 to 10 years, we need to set up our community to have a convention center that can accommodate these groups and others. We need to grow with them. We have a long history of always being kind of the last ones to the table. We need to be the first one to the table in the future. And the first step for us to do is to undertake a feasibility study and see, you know, is the business out there? I will say I did talk to a couple of our customers, and one conversation that I had with the folks at Emerald Exposition, I said, you know, if we were to expand the convention center by 225,000 feet of exhibit space, what would that mean for your business? What would that mean for Reno? And the lady who's the executive vice president, she responded, she said, well, you'd get a lot more business from us, right? She doesn't have to tell us that. There's no scientific study or basis for her comment, but that'll give you an indication that through a feasibility study, we should begin to explore this so that we are prepared as a community, if it's favorable, to go before the 2019 state legislature and plead our case. This leads us now to some highlights of proposed CE goals for this fiscal year. Room nights, that's what it's all about. We need to produce convention room nights. And our goal our proposed goal for Mr. Larraguetta is 260,000 convention room nights, and I'm sure he's well on his way. Also, visitation and destination awareness. Here again, this is driven by our marketing campaign. We need to put as many dollars as we can into our our print and radio and online and television advertising, and billboard development, and all of it, and let that bake a little bit with our new branding campaign. We also need to make better use of the media. We have a public relations firm based in New York, and through them we are going to attempt to place at least 15 tourism stories in high-profile national and regional publications. Client satisfaction. If you're going to be in business today, you need to develop service. Every customer in the nation expects exemplary service, and if you don't have it, you're out of the game pretty quickly. So through client surveys, that'll be our metric, but this is really the responsibility of Jennifer Powers, our Director of Customer Satisfaction and Convention Services, to ensure that each and every customer or client coming to town with a convention is well taken care of in our facilities. Organizational health. Key, we got to have employees that are engaged in our culture, that enjoy coming to work, have a smile on their face, and are happy to be here. And it's my responsibility as the CEO to create that culture. Internally, we need to have great employee engagement, and externally, great community involvement and leadership. Some of the metrics we use will be employee roundtables, employee events, open door policy. My door is open to every employee. My solid doors have been replaced with glass doors, and everyone can just come up and see what the CEO is doing that day. And of course, engagement in community events and visibility, and also through our e-publications. Financial health, that's an obvious. We've got a great director of finance, Mr. Chisel. You've only been with us a month, but the money's still in the account, isn't it? Yes, it is. Very good. So Robert is he's bringing a great skill set to us, and we should be very proud of him to have him with us. Also, policies and procedures. Make sure that we're operating under generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, and follow our strategic plan. Thank you. Any questions? No questions? Good, I'll sit down.
I know. We blew right in G1 into G2, but that's okay.
Finished?
We'll get through there. Any questions from the board, Ms. Farahi?
Phil, I want to congratulate you and the team. Again, it comes from always starts from the top. Putting the elements in place for many years of hopefully very much progressive, successful organization that we have not had in the history of this organization as far as I'm concerned, at least for the last 30 years. So the elements are coming together. What I would like to ask you again, as part of what you indicated earlier on, that you bringing these elements into that comprehensive plan that this board can approve and can monitor in where are we going, what kind of result we see, and I already see you indicated many of those today. Many of them you brought up. But I will urge you to put that in a plan, to bring it to this board, please, for us to ratify and clearly be able to measure our performance and success as we go on. Thank you.
Mr. Caroselli?
Are we talking about what?
Whatever you want to talk about. You know, we just have this, get everyone together. We blew right into G2, but yes, if you want to speak about that, go right ahead.
I just have some comments to make and questions about the bonus. I think one of the agenda items is a 6-month bonus potential and so forth, but I want to make some comments about the bonus program in general. And I want to state my questions on this agenda item, and they're not about Phil. I mean, they're not about Phil at all. They're about the process. I think it's a great 6-month report, And I'm sure we're going to see in another 6 months, another great report. But, so there's been a lot of positive achievement to date, and I think we're going to have more. But in regards to information in our packet, when we do consider a bonus, I would like to know the actual numbers Mr. DeLone hit regarding to the established goals. And are those goals all weighted the same, or do we have value, or do we value some more than others? In other words, at the airport authority, as an example, we weigh each goal. There may be 10 goals. The most weight is put upon increasing air service. That's, I think, roughly 30%, if I'm not mistaken, and then it goes down from there. Finance is X 10%, whatever the number is. Do we want to use that kind of a structure here? Do we want to weigh, which I would think room nights, to me, should have the biggest weight as we assess his performance? But that's just a question. Do we, on certain bonus packages or programs, it's all or nothing? Are we going to give a bonus based on the meeting in them all, or then if not, there's nothing? Or do we give a percentage for what he's met based on the percentage of accomplishment? Okay. Now, is this bonus number at the board's discretion, or do we have guidelines as to what we can approve? These are issues. Again, when we discuss a bona fide bonus program, I think we have to include or discuss some of these issues. And from past experience with the airport authority and EDON and other governing boards, I feel that we have to establish a more structured process moving forward. So my comments are about the process, not about his performance, because I think it's very good.
Ms. Rezac, do you want to weigh in on any of that?
Sure, I can go over what is contractually set in place so far, and there are two different items to talk about overall bonus structure. Under the contract at paragraph 1.2.1 was just the 6-month evaluation. That was the first agenda item for today. There is no obligation for any bonus, but it is fully within the discretion of the board if any bonus were to be awarded, but it is not required contractually at all at any time for any bonus. With respect to fiscal year 17-18, those goals are to be set, and then upon completion of the fiscal year 17-18, the board will do an evaluation, and at that time, again, fully within the discretion of the board, they may award a bonus. There is a bonus pool allotted for in the contract of up to 40% of the salary as that ability to the board would be able to, within its discretion, award. With respect to the questions of whether or not to weight goals, what kind of structure, when we first went through and had the initial discussion about during the CEO search process, it was determined at that time that we would come back and have discussions related to the process. Obviously, there are new board members, but also they wanted to have the new CEO be able to weigh in with respect to their thoughts with how those should be weighted. As Mr. Caroselli had said, there are different thought processes. There are, you can weight each goal. Here is our primary goal, so we can provide a percentage to that. But also within that, again, it's always fully within the discretion of the board. If you set goals, you can also set them to say, on very objective nature, for example, room nights, 260,000 room nights. You can say you either meet 260,000 room nights and you are awarded that amount of a goal. That is all within the discretion of the board in how you set those goals. I will also just, for ease of ability to be able to do this, I know other boards, such as the airport, does have a compensation committee of a smaller group. It is noticed, it can be a public meeting, but they meet and they do the difficult work with respect to how do we weight these, what do we think these metrics should be, whether or not it is more an objective-based goal versus a subjective. And usually when you have something like 5 goals, some of them are very objective-based, room nights, for example, for us. Others, client surveys can be objective if you have a baseline. They have worked in the last 6 months to get that baseline, but don't have a ton of data at this point. And you also have some other subjective types of goals, such as overall organizational health and culture. And there's also employee engagement surveys and things like that that can be done. But I think guidance from the board with respect to what you would like to see, and also the thought process on whether or not you want all or nothing. If you want some all or nothing, others can be more subjective. It's fully within the discretion of the board in the contract.
Mr. Murdoch, did you want to say?
Thank you. First of all, just a comment on Phil and your team. Fantastic job. I'm going to tell you something. We brought you in to make some changes. You did it. You got a great team. You're only as good as your team. Your team's performing. I know you've been here just 6 months, but you've accomplished a lot. We're headed in the right direction. That's a very big positive to me. Secondly, I came off the same structure that Nat did at the Airport Authority, and I think we really need to look at that. And I've never known any company to ever award a 6-month bonus. I mean, that's news to me. You always were based on your, whether it's a physical year or a year, whatever, you were awarded a bonus on a year, and this is how the team did, and so forth and so on. And Molly, I do agree with what you said also, the matrix that you use for that, whether it's the health of the organization, the employee morale, all that's weighted. Obviously, that's very important, and the weights are, you know, within the percentages that they need to be and how important they are. But ultimately, the bonus is paid on performance and what is it generating in room nights, which is, that's how we look at it with Ms. Mora at the airport. So I'm all for that. I really think we need to go back to that. And I think in fairness to Phil, I mean, a year is a year. And I think that's the way we're all used to. I don't know if anybody else knows that you do this, but I'd like to see us look at that. And I think he's going to achieve his bonuses because obviously he's changed the team and they're winning. So that's my 3 cents. Thank you.
Mr. Farai, then Mr. Lucy.
Six months bonus? Where did that come from?
I didn't write it. You guys wrote it.
You just got on board. Get the job done. Well, I didn't vote for 6-month bonus. What I voted for, and you go check the record, in previous CEOs was up to 20% bonus potential, 20%. I thought that 20% bonus for a CEO is nonsense. And again, the minutes will reflect, go to 40%, which I'm glad is in there for 40%. You get the job done, God bless you. You should get the 40%. All I want to say, first of all, yes, 6 months is premature. No company that I know of either. If somebody in our company came and asked for a bonus after 6 months, I would tell them where to look for. But what I'm telling you, yeah, what is the question for us is to put that measurement tool in there. Like, I don't agree with Nat most of the times, but this time I'm going to agree with him. That we need to put the measuring tools in place so you know how we're going to measure this. And I think a small committee, we cannot sit here and start putting that. Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend that with a small committee, put these measuring tools in place, bring it before this board, the board approves it, and get it done. And the third thing, you're going to forgive me, I'm going to say this repeatedly. We are not done the job till you bring that comprehensive plan for the next 5, 7 years, 10 years, where this organization is going, and this board approves that plan. Thank you.
Mr. Lucy.
Thank you.
Chairman Lucy.
I apologize for my tardiness today. However, I've been looking for my master mute for Farahi's microphone, but obviously we need to work that into the budget for the technology services.
I'm going to take care of you, Mr. Chairman.
No, obviously I came late into the discussion, but I feel that Mr. Farahi and Mr. Caroselli make some very valid points in regards to the process. And the process that I think Mr. Murdoch has mentioned that as well, that there needs to be a clear outline process. We can't just from the hip decide whether, based upon how we're feeling in a day, what a bonus should look like, and what that structure should be. And based upon discussions that I've heard today, I think it would be prudent to have a small committee set up, a compensation committee devised to go over structure of compensation, what compensation would be, whether it's all or nothing, what the KPIs would be measured, how those KPIs would be weighted, and I think through Ms. Rizak and then obviously our partners at On Strategy, we could easily put those together and prevent something to a subcommittee to be brought back to this board and for further discussion. But I really think that would be a wise understanding, and I would look to the other board members to stand up and participate in that board, and we can discuss that, and maybe Ms. Rizak can outline what the construct of that committee would look like. But I think you agree. I mean, Phil, I've seen you take this job on January 1st or some short time after, and really change the true feel, look, and professional presentation that this organization has been lacking for some time. And not to speak poorly upon the team that was here, it was just lacking the leadership that needed. And this board has put through the strategic process some clear understanding of what we wanted to see. But now that we're seeing that traction, I'd like to see you really come through the end of the year and really guns a-blazing and really be able to measure that and see where we're at. And then once we have that understanding and we've had time to convene as a subcommittee in regards to compensation and what those compensation packages looks like, then make those decisions from there at the end of the year. That would be my comments. Just reason.
Is there a motion in there somewhere?
Hold on.
Ms. Rizak.
We actually do have a finance and personnel committee. It's just not staffed at this point. So, Ben can talk about the specifics.
Right, so I just offer that we're not stylized to create a new committee, to create a compensation committee, but we do have an existing finance committee that we can constitute, and we could refer this to the finance committee.
Yeah.
It's people on the, yeah.
So I would, if you don't mind, Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we but delay the item of an actual bonus at this time and refer a compensation style package or policy to be conducted by, or some foundation to be conducted by the Finance Committee at this time, and be brought back to this board with better structure of policy.
And what the finance committee could do is look at the fiscal year 17-18. I want to be clear that the 6th month was to be an evaluation, and there was just the option to do a bonus in any amount or no amount. There was no obligation to do that. What needs to happen going forward is fiscal year 17-18, and the finance/personnel committee that has already been established could look at that, come up with that overall process with respect to that, and bring that proposal back to the board.
That would be my suggestion and motion, Mr. Vice
We got
Chair.
a motion, Mr. Wowo.
So I'm not sure if I'm hearing this correctly. So are we skipping over giving the 6-month bonus, or are we just putting together a structure for an overall bonus of the 2017-18
Right now, the motion is
year?
that we're going to refer the structure of the bonus in the future back to the Finance Committee. That will then bring it back to this board.
So are we tabling the 6-month?
Well, we haven't addressed that at this particular moment. So I'm still looking for a second.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. All right, so all those in favor of referring this item for the structure of the bonus to the Finance Committee, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now the question is, do you want to give them a 6-month bonus?
I'll speak to that. I think Ms. Fry and Murdoch already kind of mentioned on it, and not congratulations again to your team. I don't think it's anything against you or your team, because you guys really have done a great job, and everything that this entire community and the region has seen that. I would like to not give a bonus for the 6 months, just based on, I mean, every organization that I've worked for, I don't think I've gotten a 6 month bonus. I mean, I wish I would have. But I think it's just a little premature at this moment. And not sure if that's a moment or a motion or a comment or a statement.
Comment from Mayor Sheevy?
All right, thank you very much. I do think a yearly bonus is certainly appropriate, and to measure everything you've accomplished. And I'll tell you one thing is, and you know this because you do it very well, but great leaders surround themselves with great people, and that's exactly what you've done. You have a stellar team, and it's really nice to sort of sit here and look at this, you know, fresh eyes and energy that's happening, and you've done that really well. And I will say, the other thing that I think that you do really well is you allow your team to do what they do best, and you're not getting into sort of their work, and you're focusing on the things that you need to focus on. But what I would say, so congratulations. I hope you're enjoying your time here. But what I would say is to continue to have a 6 month update, or at least quarterly updates on your performance and where you're at.
Mr. Caroselli.
I think it's great to hear that all the board members agreed 100% that Mr. Delone and his team are doing a nice job. Thank you.
Well, it doesn't look like you're going to get that new Harley, Mr. Delone, so. All right. Mr. Wood.
I'd just like to apologize to the board. I have to leave, but I want to congratulate you and the team on a fantastic job, and I'm very excited about the future.
Perfect. Okay, so let's move on to item G3.
I apologize. I have to leave too. Just really quickly, Banksy's coming. Do you guys know who Banksy is? This is amazing. Space Whale was very successful, by the way. I want to thank the RSCVA for their support. And you may not know this, Android Jones, who did some of the etching and the stained glass in the whale, his laser light show was shown at the Vatican. So now we have something in common, Reno and the Vatican. So that kind of made national news. And we were just on MSNBC yesterday with more national news. This is a great national story. I mean, every time I turn around, we're getting national requests. Reno really is on the map. Everyone should be really proud. Everyone's working together. And I just want to say I'm so fortunate. So thank you so much, everyone. And I'll see you soon.
Mayor Sheevy. Mr. Lucy.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would like to accept the G3, the RSCVA staff update as presented.
Do I have a second?
All right.
Second
It's not an
by
action. It's not an action item. Just a call for questions if you want.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Nope. I don't want to speak on everybody's behalf today, but
just in case you thought you had a question.
Just in case you thought, no.
Okay, board member comments.
Chief, can I have one quick comment? Mr. Vice Chair, one thing I would like to ask for an update though is that I'd like to get an update from staff in regards to, we did do monies to the city of Reno and to the city of Sparks for the signage in regards to the arch. Just like to get an update from the city of Reno staff in regards to where the progress is on the arch, and then also progress for what you're looking at me weird here.
I can tell you real quick, the city of Reno presented a contract to the council yesterday for YESCO to begin development of refreshing the arch. Probably will not start construction until January, February of next year, 2018.
Look at that. Got my answer right there.
Now I can tell you about Sparks. It's out for bid right this minute.
Perfect. That's all I needed to know.
There you go.
All right. That's all I had.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Any future agenda items you want to see? With that being said, I don't have any more public comment cards. Anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
You just have to staff the person. You do that.
Okay.
I was on the finance committee, wasn't I?
Yeah, like John was, like, the board members that.
Me, Lawson, and John, and Chris. So basically, it's a bit, right?